Oh no, nothing can stop them now. Oh, hello. You know, I don't mean to sound lazy, but sometimes I just get sick of washing dishes every day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, plates, bowls, cups. It would be nice if there was some sort of dishwashing machine. I know. Or even better yet, some sort of edible plate. Bear with me. Disposable plates made of paper, plastic, or styrofoam are wasteful. But what if there was some sort of edible plate that you could place your food on, wrap it up into a tube, and just eat the whole thing? It's a beautiful dream.
Well, tonight your dreams are coming true.
Yes, tonight we're making tortillas. You'll need flour, of course. I recommend some kind of high-gluten flour, such as bread flour, but all-purpose will work just as well. You can use all white, or half white and half wheat. You don't absolutely need baking powder, but I recommend it. You can omit it if you like, but it does help with the texture and flavor of the tortillas. You'll need salt and some kind of fat, such as vegetable oil or shortening, or, if you prefer, butter or lard. You'll also need some kind of liquid, such as water, milk, or non-dairy milk. First, you need to mix the dry ingredients. 2 cups of flour, a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of baking powder, and about a teaspoon of salt. Mix the dry ingredients together well. Now add a tablespoon or so of the oil or shortening. The more you use, the softer and tastier the tortillas will be, but if you use too much, they'll just be greasy, so I recommend about a tablespoon. If you're using shortening, you might want to use a fork, pastry blender, or even your fingers to mix it into the flour. If you're using oil, you can just stir it in with a spoon or whatever. Once the oil is mixed into the flour, add the liquid. For 2 cups of flour, use about 3/4 of a cup of water or milk. The liquid should be lukewarm to warm. You may need more or less liquid depending on factors such as the climate and the season. It's better to add slightly too much than slightly too little. As you're kneading the dough, it's easier to work in more flour than it is to work in more liquid. Once everything is mixed together and you have your dough, turn it out onto a clean, dry, floured surface and knead it for a few minutes. Don't worry if you've never kneaded dough before, it's very easy. There are many methods, but they all essentially do the same thing. Flatten out the dough, fold it back over on itself, and flatten it out again. I use a slightly modified method that I learned from a baking book called Beard on Bread by James Beard. I use my fists to flatten out the wad of dough. I fold it over on itself from the top, give it a quarter turn, and repeat the process. Do this for a few minutes until the dough is soft and elasticy and still moist but not too sticky. If it's ready, it will spring back when you poke it. Cover it with plastic wrap and let it sit for at least 5 minutes. This will let the gluten in the dough relax and make it much easier to work with. After the dough has rested for a few minutes, divide it into as many pieces as you like. This recipe will make 4 very large tortillas that you might not have a pan big enough for, or 6 fairly large tortillas, or 8 to 10 small tortillas. I usually make 6 with this recipe. Now form each piece of dough into a ball. I do this by placing flour on the palms of both of my hands and firmly rolling the dough between them like Play-Doh. Cover the balls of dough with plastic wrap. Try to cover them well and try to give them some space so that they don't touch each other. They will need a little bit of room to expand. After you cover them, let them rest for at least 10 minutes. Once they have rested, pat them into a disc and place them again on a well-floured surface. You'll want to coat your rolling pin in flour as well to keep it from sticking to the dough. The easiest and best method I've found for rolling out tortillas is to roll back and forth in one direction. Do this a few times, turn the tortilla over, give it a half to a quarter turn, and repeat the process. Remember to press down firmly, and if the dough starts to stick to either the rolling pin or the floured surface, just add some more flour. This process should only take a few minutes at the most. You should end up with at least a rough circle, and it should be fairly thin, somewhere between the thickness of cereal box cardboard and moving box cardboard. After you've rolled out the tortilla, using a pastry brush or just the tips of your fingers, brush off the excess flour. You'll want to do this on both sides. If you don't, the flour will scorch in the pan and it will come off on your hands when you're eating your burrito. This next step is somewhat easier with 2 people, but it's not too much of a hassle to do it on your own. Generally, I roll out one tortilla, cook it, roll out the next one, cook that, and so on. So preheat a clean, dry, non-greased skillet on about medium heat to start with. You can tell when it's preheated by dropping some water into the skillet and watching it sizzle away. Place the tortilla in the skillet as flatly and evenly as you can. I sometimes end up with a corner or two on the sides of the pan, as I roll mine out slightly irregularly. You can kind of scoot them down onto the bottom of the pan with a spatula. It's okay if there are a few wrinkles in the tortilla and the edges won't cook fast enough on the sides of the pan. As the tortilla cooks, bubbles will form and it will start to dry out. This step can be a bit of trial and error. It's a bit like cooking pancakes. Unless you've cooked them before, it's difficult to know exactly when to flip them. It's better to flip too early than too late. You really should flip only once, but if you flip it too early, there's not really any harm in flipping it back over. When the bubbles start to get medium to large and it looks a bit dry, go ahead and flip it. This tortilla is done, but only barely done on the first side. It has only a few golden brown spots. It's done, but it wouldn't have hurt to let it cook for a few seconds more. The tortilla does not take as long on the second side as it does on the first, and it's easier to burn it on the second side. Again, it's better to flip it too early than too late. You can flip it back over if you have to, and if you flip it too late, you'll be scraping off flakes of charcoal. As you cook your tortillas, to keep them warm and moist, place them on a plate and cover them with a clean towel. They should store very well in an airtight container for up to a week. So now you've made them, but you might not eat them all at once. To reheat them, cover them with a slightly damp paper towel and place them in the microwave for 30 seconds on high, then use as you normally would.
Alright, now where am I supposed to set this? It's turtles and plates all the way down. Tune in next time for information on something else.